and welcome back to the Dice Tower's coverage of GAMA 2016. I am speaking today with Eric from Evil Hat Productions.
Hi.
And this was kind of a special one to me because last night during the play day that they had where all of the publishers were demoing their games, I was going through just taking pictures and tweeting pictures of all the games being played. And this was just laid out, no one was even playing it. This was just laid out on the table, this Dresden Files cooperative card game. And I tweeted it, and that tweet by far got the most excited fan response of any of the
That's
other
awesome
tweets
to hear.
So I wanted to track you down today.
Thank you.
So you could tell us what this is all about.
Sure. So let me give you just a quick snapshot of the game. This is a true cooperative game like Pandemic. Everybody's playing against the board, no traitor, anything like that. You're playing Harry Dresden, the wizard private detective, and a group of his friends. Mm-hmm. And you are essentially have a common pool of action points. You're alternating turns between playing your card and spending the team's points to take an action, or discarding the card to generate more action points for the team. And so there's this kind of trade-off between your selfish turns and your unselfish turns.
You have to make that decision to give up something for yourself to help the team?
A little bit, yeah. Okay. You still get to take, you still have powers you get to use when you do that. So it's not like you're skipping your turn then taking one for the team.
Okay.
But there's still a balance in that, that I think makes the discussion that the players have about what they're doing a little more meaningful. It's not just, here's the leader, I tell you all, you do this, you do this, you do that.
Exactly, yeah. Excellent.
And so you are solving cases and defeating foes, essentially adding damage to them until they get up to that hit and take them out.
Okay.
There are a lot of text effects on the cards, so if you see these letters, that's showing you there's a relationship between the effects on those cards. Mm-hmm. So, for example, until you solve this case, I wouldn't legally be able to damage that foe in any way. And that's where we bring in that kind of strong relationship to the books. The theming of the books is we can use those little logistics puzzles to mirror the events. So one game is playing through one novel of the Dresden Files.
Okay.
And takes about 20 minutes. It's a really quick.
Okay, and it's true cooperative, like you said.
Right.
Okay. And I was going to ask how closely the game and the scenarios are based on the books.
Very closely. I had read all the books a couple of times when I got the commission to do the game. Uh-huh. I read them a bunch more times. And the more I developed it, I was always thinking about, how can I not just sort of name the cards after specific things in the books, but how can I really get that theme mechanic relationship, make the action reflect what's going on there so that the players will look at something and think, oh, Harry's got a blue beetle card. Its range is really unreliable. It's really random, that kind of thing. So little Easter eggs in the game for players.
So, Dresden seems to be all about Easter eggs,
right.
too.
So you can dig this game fine if you know nothing about the Dresden Files. You can pick it up fine. But if you do know the Dresden Files, then there's a lot of little satisfying things to you. But we also tried to avoid really overt spoilers for people who are still on book one but want to play the game a little further in. We won't tell you who we'll say, the case is who is the Shadow Man, but we won't tell you who the Shadow Man is in the game. So.
Now, is the way that the production is going to be set up, is it going to be like a base game with a certain set of scenarios, then expansions coming out?
Right, exactly. So we're going to be kickstarting in mid-late April the base set, which is going to be 5 novels, 5 characters, plus a random scenario generator. So it's not like you just play those 5 books and then you're done with the game.
It has some longevity.
Right. It'll also take you a while to win each of these books. You're supposed to lose a good 2 out of 3 when you play this game. It's meant to be tough and close every game. But then we're also kickstarting 3 expansions. The first 3 expansions we have planned. That's going to add another, I believe it's 6 books and 5 or 6 characters. That'll take you up through Turncoat, if you know the series.
Okay.
And then if it's the hit we hope it's going to be, we'll certainly do the rest of the books too. Then it'll probably be time for maybe a new base set with some powered up versions of the main characters and things like that.
So you kind of have a plan going into the future of kind of how it's going to progress.
Right. Not just me, but really everybody at Evil Hat is a big Dresden Files fan. They, of course, did the Dresden Files RPG, so they have a long-standing relationship with Jim Butcher. Everybody's really dedicated to doing right by this series.
I was going to ask you about that. How does this cooperative card game compare to the other products that Evil Hat has produced to date?
Sure. So, well, first of all, it is their first cooperative game, although they do have another one in the works right now.
Oh,
I'm not
okay.
sure how much I'm supposed to say about that one. For me, it's my first cooperative game. I've done development on a cooperative game before, but I haven't designed one before. But I think it's like their other board games. I think it has a lot of theme ingrained into it. That's kind of maybe the common element. And in some ways, the two previous games I did for them, I feel like were somewhat working up to this in various ways. I don't know if I could quantify that. It's just my sense as a designer of what I was doing.
Have built on those experiences.
And the mechanics of this game, in a lot of ways, reflect the Fate core system, which the original version of which is the engine under the Dresden Files role-playing game.
Okay.
So people who like the role-playing game should see a lot that's familiar. It should be a pretty easy. We want this game to be a challenging game, but an easy learn for people who are maybe role players but not really board gamers, or Dresden Files fans but not really gamers yet. We're hoping to draw them in, and at the same time make it pretty rewarding for hardcore gamers too.
Excellent, excellent. Okay. Was there anything else about the presentation of the game or the mechanisms of it that you wanted to touch on?
I'm sure there are some. I guess just as another little thing for the fans of Evil Hat and all the ways I tried to work sort of not just everything Dresden, but everything Evil Hat into this game. It uses Fate dice.
I noticed that. It's got the fudge dice, Fate dice.
Right. And essentially, anytime you see this kind of iconography, the 3 with the 1 in a little box, that means that's a base value plus the result of that many Fate dice. So for me as a designer, it took me a long time to figure out how am I going to use Fate dice. They're like 3-sided dice that range from -1 to 1. It's like they throw Z scores. But then I realized, I can use them to create customizable curves. Instead of just throwing a bell curve like 2d6 does. By adding the base value, I can make it to a really narrow curve. I can make it to a really wide curve. That controllability was really useful to me as a designer in creating the amount of variance, because for me, this was a tremendous amount of content to have to make. At certain parts, I don't know, I was just complaining to Fred about, what do you mean you want another, 6 decks? Oh, man. I worked on this for over a year, which was my longest design process by far. I'm a very fast designer normally.
So a year, okay. So this
is the biggest investment of my time and energy I've put into anything so far.
This wasn't, hey, we got the license, stamp out a game, there you go.
And we got this to really a pretty near finished state before we even signed the contract on the license. I mean, they had a good pre-existing relationship with Jim, so they had a good bet. But I was still like, I better make this good, which is what every single Dresden fan has said to me. They're like, we're very excited about this, and you'd better get this right. You'd better not screw this up.
Exactly. No pressure.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent. Well, yes, it's really neat to see a cooperative game that incorporates the fudge dice or the plus-minus dice, because I don't see that very often. So it's going to be neat to see how that is incorporated into the curves.
Yeah, I'm happy with how it turned out. I'm very happy with this.
And the Kickstarter is when?
Mid to late April.
Mid to late April.
And the MSRP on the base set, I believe, is going to be $40. Expansions, I think that's going to be 15 or 20. I've lost track of that. I am but the humble game designer. I don't make these decisions.
Fair enough. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing the Kickstarter.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you for stopping by.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure.
Really appreciate it.
Until next time, keep watching the Dice Tower for more coverage of the GAMA Trade Show 2016. Thanks.